It's another episode of You Don't Have to Be Perfect. You just have to get started. And boy, do I have a special treat for you today. We are so blessed, to have my big brother by 3 days. My
Right,
big
exactly.
brother by 3 days on the line with us today. We have our brother Beto Paredes, who is the CEO of Beto Paredes family of companies. This gentleman's story is amazing. He has seen the world and back, and many of us make excuses for why we are where we are or what we are going through. But this man's life is just a story of overcoming. So I'd like to say, welcome, Beto.
Thank you
How
very
are you
much,
today,
Paz.
my
I'm
brother?
excited to be here. Excited to be here. And I've known Paz for a very long time. For any of you that've been on this stream for some time, checking out his other stuff, it's a pleasure to be on your show.
Oh man, the pleasure is all mine. And the name of the show is You Don't Have to Be Perfect. You just have to get started. And I'd love for you to tell a little bit, God rest his soul, just about your dad. Because it didn't even start with you, right? It
Sure.
started with your dad and him having a dream. So why don't you tell the people a little bit about, Papa Paredes?
Yeah, you bet. So, my dad just passed very recently. We, the whole family was, very, very supportive of this situation. When my dad was a titan from in the local area, things that we're doing with our companies quite a bit, bigger, larger scale, whatever it might be. But he came from Chile. He actually had lived very poorly when he was there. Took care of his mother, took care of his brothers and sisters. His father died of cancer when he was just a young teenager, 17, 18 years old. And so he cared for his entire family. They lived in a house that, was on a dirt floor. It was basically a garage that they had remodeled to become a home. And they lived there for several years. And my dad basically brought all of his brothers and sisters, his entire family, into the country, into the United States. I was born here. All my brothers and sisters were born here. And my dad basically, when he got here, couldn't speak any English and just decided he was going to be a business entrepreneur right off the bat. He worked for other people for about 6 months, and that's the only time he ever worked for anyone else. And since that point, he worked for himself for his entire life. And so I grew up in an entrepreneur's home. That's a privilege. It seemed like a curse when I was younger at times because, sometimes my family would have money. Sometimes they wouldn't have any money. Sometimes we'd be looking at going on vacation together. Sometimes we would just barely even make it through. My dad would be stressed. And he operated 7 television shops. He had started a disco at one time. He started his own school. And in that school, they qualified electronic technicians. So he trained something like about 700 people in that school. And he did a lot of stuff. He was one of the survivors in his industry too when it started to close down a little bit because people didn't get their TVs repaired. He was an electronic technician, and so he refurbished his model and started picking up TVs at DIs, which you guys don't know if you know what Desert Industries is. It's like Goodwills, and refurbishing them, putting them into putting a warranty on him, and then he would take them around to all the Spanish shops all up and down between here and Salt Lake City. And he basically rebuilt himself again when he was in his early 60s and was able to actually survive as an entrepreneur, never having to work for anyone else, and took care of his family. I had 10 brothers and sisters. And so, I grew up in an entrepreneur's home. I'm very lucky to have done that. Now I'm close to 50 at this point. And I don't think I would have made it as far as I did if it wasn't for the fact that I had these early lessons when I was younger. And I try to help a lot of other folks that maybe have family that didn't go through that didn't have entrepreneurs as parents to just keep the course and deal with the difficulty and potential suffering that comes along with being your own boss and managing things on your own. And when I was 27 years old myself, I stopped working for other folks. It was the last year I worked for anyone else, and I've worked for myself, owning and operating companies since that point. And it's been about 22, 23 years at this point. So, but yeah, that's my dad. Actually, absolutely love him to death. Everybody in our local area loved my dad. He was quite famous, really. It was a little small town famous, but he was a big inspiration for me.
Hey, small town famous is still famous, right?
Yeah,
There, so we'll take that all day. And I love that you talked about your dad coming in for Chile. So being the
yeah,
son of an immigrant, let's not even go to the son of an entrepreneur. Being the son of an immigrant, it would have been easy for you guys to make a bunch of excuses on why not to get started, on how
sure.
things, and how things, the ups and downs of life, how those things would have pushed you into just getting a conventional job. How do you think being the son of an immigrant shaped your life? And then how do you think it helped you to propel entrepreneurship?
Yeah, that's a great question. In my household, but my dad obviously being an immigrant from Chile, then my mom being a farm girl. She grew up on a farm here in Idaho. That's she's from here, and then my dad was from down there. Kind of two real kind of rugged backgrounds there a little bit. In our household, we didn't really have the option to not be successful in my house. I growing up and meeting other people and even friends in high school and stuff. A lot of times I'd even be a little jealous of how easy it seemed that other people had it, but there was no excuses. We always had to have our rooms clean. If there was something that was on our chore list, for example, there was never an option. There's never an allowance for excuses or in our grades. You name it, whatever it may have been. We've just very, very disciplined household, and it's that discipline that I've realized is absolutely like the only brand in my life that has really got me through some of the toughest moments that I've ever experienced. And so I was lucky as a kid. If I had a job, and I worked, heck, my very first job is I ran a lemonade stand for an entire summer once, actually, when I was like 10. But if I didn't have a job, my dad had me at his shops working. He just absolutely would not put up with me not actually working all summer. And so every summer, from the time I was able to do anything, I was either mowing lawns when I was a little bit younger, or I was working in restaurants when I got a little bit older. And I had to work just to stop my dad from taking me to the shop and making me work there. So I didn't have a choice. And so, growing up in that situation, and having an immigrant father, he certainly thought things were a lot tougher on being alive in general, to the general population, and than they actually were in the U.S. And that's because where he came from, things were very rough. He had left Chile just before Pinochet had actually came in. And the coup had happened down there, if any of you are familiar with that history at all. And he was actually in the military when he was down there. And so, his expectations of life were so much more survival based because of his upbringing. And, when I was young, I knew that even growing up, getting into junior high and high school, I knew that he was harder on us than other parents were on their kids. But, I couldn't appreciate it more. I couldn't appreciate it more at this point because, things do get rough. And as you're talking, you just got to get started on things. Believe it or not, that is so true. You've just got to get started on things. You just got to start working towards something and actually setting goals on the day that you're working, that you can actually get done that very day. And I learned that from my dad. My dad took things one day at a time. He worked very, very hard. Even when things seemed impossible for him, he knew that if he would just work harder and work through things, that he'd get through the things that he needed to. And he always came through for us. And so, I've learned to be able to do that. I've got 32 employees now. I've got my own family. I've got 6 children. I'm constantly being challenged to come through for them. And so, I learned a lot of that from the grit, really the grit that my father had being an immigrant coming into this country. One of the stories I really like to tell about it because it's fun. Me and my mom still talk about it a little bit, but when they first got here. My mom married him down there, and then they came up here. And he opened. First thing he did was go and got a loan out to get a building. And back in those days, you could do that a lot easier than you can these days. So he got a building. So he bought a building. That's like one of the first things he did. And my mom would actually have to interpret for him because he couldn't speak English yet. He was so determined to be a business owner and to live the American dream, because that's why he came to America, that he literally, first thing he did after the 6 months of working for some other folks for just a minute, when he first got here, he bought a building. And he literally went and did all the marketing that he needed to let everyone know he was there for television repair, for electronics repair. And my mom would literally have to sit out front and interpret between my father and all of the customers. It drove her crazy. It's funny, just the stories that she would tell about when they would first open up their business. But, and if my dad can do that, if my dad can literally open up a business, buy a building, go out, start marketing, working really 6-7 days a week to get this thing rolling, and couldn't even speak the language yet. I guarantee if you're from here and you know the language, you're 2 steps ahead. And he did it, and they made it. And he ran that television shop. In fact, he won an award for having one of the longest standing businesses in St. Anthony, Idaho, where I'm from. At one point, he was actually the oldest business in town. So he'd had it operating for so long. So pretty neat stuff.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Just to hear his entrepreneurial journey and how that journey shaped your life. But, being an entrepreneur, just because you watched your dad and you learned from your dad, doesn't mean you didn't have any stumbles along the way of yourself.
Oh, hundreds.
How did you deal with, first of all, facing what other people may consider a failure, right? And never, losing steam, so that you can create this.
I think it comes down to, the old Stoic saying that the obstacle is the way. I know it's a pretty popular one. And I hadn't even heard that until the last couple of years. And I learned that process probably better than I could have ever even imagined it when I actually did hear that quote. When things get really, really difficult, when you lean into it, things seem overwhelming. There's possibilities of failure that are so egregious that, it seems pointless to move forward. I think that's one of the things that really kills entrepreneurs a lot of times, is they'll hit a certain point where it just really seems like it's impossible to be able to accomplish something. It's not whether they got the energy, it's not whether they stand up and do the mirror talk or whatever else it might be. It's that their mind, and I've been there a number of times, where your mind just can't actually turn the wheel enough to really see what the future is going to hold. And it just feels like anywhere you go, it's going to end up being a failure. And the difficult thing to tell you at this point is sometimes it's true. Okay. And the reality is not everything's always going to work exactly the way you think it will. Most of the time, it never does. In fact, sometimes it's better. And so that's the things you're always looking forward to, is life is a curve. It's not a straight line. Okay. And so what I've learned is you lean into it. When things get very difficult, you use the difficulty as energy. You lean into it. You work harder on it. You decide that you're going to analyze it further. It's the more difficult it is, the more attention you want to give it. And so if you don't do that and you start giving yourself breaks, you're like, you know what, this is just too much for me. I can't deal with this right now. I don't think this is going to work. You start self-talk in that fashion, you're going to start coming up with all kinds of reasons to not move forward. Okay. And I've caught myself in those situations so many times. Like, there's absolutely no question. And sometimes you keep moving forward and it is a brick wall. It is. And whatever it is that you're working on, it's going to have an end point. And the reality is, real successful work comes after you've hit a number of those endpoints. You're going to hit them. It's a guarantee. And if you move into things and knowing that possibility is not only there, but you would be a leprechaun if you happen to be the first entrepreneur that didn't hit a brick wall. Okay. You would be a leprechaun. Okay. None of the ones I know that I've been in business with for a number of years, Paz included, have ever been in a position where suddenly something worked just absolutely perfect. There are situations where that happens, but you need to be prepared to not allow yourself to let those things be the reason you stop. When things get more difficult, you lean into them. What a perfect example, we ran an automotive show. Part of my background is in building automotive tech. I have a company that's still operating. They have over 3,000 clients in the automotive industry. And so me and the ex-CEO of that company, we decided we were going to launch a show. We're like, hey, we know automotive, we're going to do a show. And we did it in Dallas. And we did it when the hurricane hit Houston. And it was during that period of time that there was also a gas shortage in Dallas because of the hurricane that hit Houston. And it was probably the worst fire season we've ever had in the entire country. So probably the worst possible time to have a bunch of dealers come and relax. There was over 500,000 pieces of inventory in Houston that went underwater. And our biggest marketing we did was in Houston. That's where we did most of our marketing. And the reason we did that is because we had a hotel block. We knew from Houston they could drive to Dallas, so they didn't need to get on an airplane, but they would need a hotel. So it was this whole strategy that we had to actually really, really market heavy in Houston to have them come to Dallas. And well, that show was absolutely awesome. The people that we had, the teacher trainers, were amazing. We had 700 dealers scheduled to come. We barely had just over 100 show up. I ended that entire enterprise $100,000 in the hole. And I got home. My wife took one look at me. I looked like I'd been stepped on by a giant. It was some of the toughest stuff. I was down in Houston. Every time I'd walk into a dealership, I'd look up at the TV, and it's like, oh, the hurricane's almost here. So I was like basically in waiting rooms talking to different dealerships, having them come to our show as I watched the hurricane coming, about to come on shore. And my son actually came. I had a friend call me, and Cherie, I think Cherie. She calls me because she lives down in Houston, and she's like, Beto, you still here? I'm like, yeah. She's like, you need to leave. And so I left with my son. I was driving, running away from the hurricane, got down to Dallas. Our show was an absolute disaster, and because of natural disaster, But I'll tell you exactly what I did, guys. I got home. I hugged my wife. I hadn't seen her for a couple of weeks. I took a nice long nap and went to bed early that night. I woke up at 5 a.m. I went to the office that morning at 5 a.m. and I worked from 5 a.m. until 7 p.m., 7 days a week until I got back up. I didn't let the fact that it failed bother me. I didn't let the fact that we were $100,000 in the hole. I mean, let alone make any money. We're in the hole, 100 grand. I wiped that out. I didn't even know how I was going to do it. I still had my entire team to pay for. I didn't know how I was going to pay for them. I didn't have a clue as to how I was going to get anything done. What I did do was I got up, I got in my car, I drove down to my office, I sat down at my computer, and I suffered through figuring out exactly what my next step needed to be, because I was sure as hell going to make it. I was going to make that next step no matter what. And I wasn't even sure what it was going to end up being. Then I figured it out. We got into some work with some other clients. Our company got back up. We did fine for quite some time, started doing quite a bit better, started working on all the medical tech that we have now. That was, about 7-8 years ago, I think, whatever that hurricane hit. So part of my PSD for that, my PTSD for that still stops me from remembering the date probably. But I made it, and I got right back up. I was $100,000 in the hole. I had a tech team that I was paying for every month. I had no money. Okay. I didn't even know exactly what I was going to do next. And it was the tenacity that I was able to draw down from the soul of myself, from the history of my family, my life. And I just did not give up. I went right to work. Okay. And that's what happens when you lean into it. You got to lean into your difficulty. And if you do, the energy comes. The ability to overcome things will show up. But you got to lean into it. That's the one thing I've learned, I think, more than anything else.
Oh man, that really, I thank you for that story. It really goes to what today's motivational video said. Today I said that the devil's in the doubt, right? You showed that you had some unwavering faith for you to go drive down to your office 5 a.m. in the morning and
Very next day from after I got home.
I'm going to figure it out,
So,
right?
yeah, and a big part of that. A big part of that, Paz, is you don't want to give yourself all that time to sit there and be so concerned about what didn't work. If things aren't exactly the way you think they should be, and you start thinking that over too much, and start overthinking things, you're just wasting so much time. And that's, I think I learned that from my dad. When the things would get hard for him, he just work harder. And it's not about always working harder. The idea is to work hard for a period of time so that you can work less than others, that whole dream. It's just that when it does become difficult and you are wanting to give up and things are hard, that's when you lean in. That's not when you lick your wounds. You know what I mean? And I think every successful entrepreneur I've ever been in business with, or I've had the chance to be around, that's what I've learned about it, is they've got grit. When things get really, really rough, you just lean into it.
Yes, yes, yes. I love it. When things get really, really rough, you just lean into it. And that's so key that you said that, because it is so easy to give up. We talk about you don't have to be perfect, you just have to get started. But what happens when we get started and it doesn't go right? Right? When it doesn't flow, when we've done everything we thought we could and we still tripped. You had a whole natural disaster, right? You didn't fail, right? The universe said, "Poo poo, here's some rain."
Oh, that's
Right?
100% what happened.
Right?
So,
You couldn't. That's not a failure based on your planning, preparation, or actions. Right? That was a natural disaster, and that natural disaster could have wiped you out because it did take away a lot of your money, but it didn't take away your spirit. And that's
100%.
so and that's so key that you said that. And I'm so glad that you shared that. Because now you're not a company, right? You're Beto Paredes family of companies, right? So you own more than one company, and I want to make sure that we say that, right? That there's more than one company under the Beto Paredes family of companies. You
100%.
know,
Sure.
so I have a few questions because I don't want to leave that there. We got with some places we got to get to, and we only got an hour. So first of all, can you say, before we go into the big company that was launched yesterday and everyone really needs to hear about, can you tell
Sure.
them about some of the companies that's in this family of companies?
Yeah, you bet. You bet. So, background, just quick. I've been engineering for about 2 decades. And I've had a team of anywhere between 15 to 40 to 50 developers, depending. Right now, we're a group of 32. And we've done a lot of firsts when it comes to marketing systems. So, if you're familiar with the affiliate marketing industry, we built some of the first affiliate marketing sales technology that's ever been online. Actually, sold a company back in 2011. I was doing about 75,000 transactions a month. That was a lot back then. Now, of course, Amazon dwarfs that in a 5-minute period. And I got in the medical space about 12 years ago, and I was able to combine a lot of my skill set that I learned in the marketing industry with medical technology and working with urgent cares, family practices, laboratories, hospitals. And so got into the bioinformatics space. If any of you are into any diagnostic industry stuff at all. Basically started reading scans of autonomic nervous system tests. Doctors were having a hard time reading them themselves. And so we built technology that basically would read all this biological data and interpret that for the physicians. And that's kind of where we started with some of the ideas that led to what it was that we announced yesterday. And so I started specializing in the medical space about 6 years ago. And we just got done in February with a provisional patent that's about a 60-page patent on the processes that we have in medical diagnostics and artificial intelligence. And we are currently working with a number of clients that have different parts of our software, but just yesterday we just kind of launched our full battle station. Our whole sales platform was actually launched yesterday. And so, history wise, that's kind of like where it came from. But the family of companies, as far as that's concerned, we got a marketing company called Monetize 365 that kind of piled a lot of the technology and stuff that we built in the marketing industry when we were working in that capacity. And then we've got rapid response medical centers, which are part of the rapid response diagnostics company. That's kind of our most exciting thing that we're working with right now. We're taking urgent care and we're taking family practices, and we're kind of blending that model into a standard diagnostic care model that is just absolutely far better than either of them on their own. And so what you'll be able to get from a rapid response medical center, which is basically what we're offering now to urgent care and to family practices, is so far superior that there's going to be very little reason outside of needing to get something like an MRI, or if you've got a real emergency, to even go to the ER. And so that's kind of our big model that we have. Is it's all diagnostic based. We're giving doctors way more data on patients on first time visits than they've ever had access to. We're varying that into artificial intelligence and giving them treatment protocol, medications, lifestyle management, and all kinds of other really, really neat stuff that they need access to in order to practice better medicine. And so yesterday we launched our sales platform, allowing folks to come in and start introducing this to practices. So.
Yes, that is amazing. So, you have been a disruptor. You said you created one of the first affiliate marketing technologies that allow people to do big things. And now you're
Yeah, we
doing
actually
some.
did the first when it came to affiliate advertisers and the platforms for affiliate advertisers. We launched just before Limelight CRM, which they became really, really big. But they built almost the same system as us. But we launched ours about something like 3 or 4 months before they did, as far as that goes. So we've done a lot of firsts. That's just one of them. The medical technology that we have for those that are interested in potentially offering this or becoming one of our sales folks, we're offering stuff nobody else has. I mean, that's the one thing about it, is it's kind of a cutting edge, bleeding edge market as far as what it is that we're doing right now in medical. So it's no saturation at all. Doctors absolutely love what we're doing. And I'm not just doctors, but medical facilities. There's a large number of things we do for laboratories and also for billing departments. But they love what we're doing because it's focused on the standards of medicine, which is diagnostics, right? You gotta really kind of look at the patient diagnostic model itself as something that's been discovered, worked on, developed for well over 100 years in the medical industry. And so we've taken what is standard requirements for physicians, which is diagnosis, and we've basically supercharged that for physicians and practices, so much to the degree that, in my personal opinion, that if there's a rapid response medical center, you're simply not going to go anywhere else. We just got way too much context and data that we're able to pull on a patient. It's like Netflix to Blockbuster difference than regular practices. So we think it's going to be very viral. We're excited.
I love I love it. I love it. And I love that you're talking about this technology, because you are a prime example of, you don't have to be perfect. You just have to get started. Because I remember when you first started really studying and going deep into this diagnostic stuff, and I
Sure,
would be
sure.
I would be so bored when you would
Oh
talk to
man,
me
that was
about it.
that was really rough. That was really rough. Yeah, Paz, you've known me for a while. I remember some of the first opportunities that I had gotten in medical. Some of the first applications I built was just for qualifications for laboratories, at home laboratories, to send lab kits to people at home. And so that's kind of some of the first stuff that we built. And as I got deeper and deeper into the diagnostic side of things and dealing with what physicians are really looking at, I was overwhelmed. It was an overwhelming thing as an engineer to get introduced to that industry, and it took a tremendous amount of research by me, by my team. Most of the members of my engineering team have been with me 15 years. A couple of them 17 years, actually. And so, we all did this together. We did all the research together and worked on this in tandem. And it was just absolutely incredible. I bought almost every textbook I could get on the subject, all of the different trainings that we went through, all of the different, really the requirements to build medical technology and to keep it safe and to be able to do it legally. I mean, it was a lift, but one thing I have always said as an engineer, if any of you out there are engineers at all, if you do things that are hard, that are needed, you're going to have little competition. That's just what I've learned. If you deal with things that are difficult and they're needed and they're required, you're going to have very little competition. In our case, we have none, simply because for competition to even exist at certain points, they'd have to get through our patents. So
I love it. And I love that you say that. And I really want our listeners to understand, like my brother here he got so deep into medical terminology and everything else that he was eating, breathing, sleeping medical terminology. He'd be calling me on the phone like, Paz, and we'd talk about medical terminology. And, that's what it took for you to get started. Everyone around you learned anywhere from physics to quantum physics, right? Because you had decided that was the level of conversation that you were going
yeah,
to
we
have.
we had to take it to the biodata level. In other words, not just interpretation and algorithms, but we had to learn exactly how to read biodata coming from a number of different sophisticated reports. Sophisticated enough, some of these the doctors themselves couldn't read them. And so that's one of the first things that we started doing was taking these complex biological data reports and making them legible. And the way you do that is you read the biological data, you score exactly what the sophistication of the disease state criteria is, and then you basically interpret that into what they call the ICD language, which is basically the disease state language that they qualify for. And doctors have a hard time doing that at certain levels. It becomes very sophisticated, especially with some of these more advanced technologies like the TM Flow. That's one of the devices that they're integrated into our system. And so we make it much easier for physicians to understand complex data. And that was where we started. So we kind of started at the more complicated side of it. And then we kind of realized, this is what we realized. This is one thing, if any of you guys working in sales or interested in working with us, this is pretty neat. What we realized is that health risk exam that we had built, one of the data points for the ANS analysis, the TM Flow device itself, that 8 out of 10 patients qualify for it if they're over the age of 35, because there's just a litmus of different symptoms that qualify you to have medical necessity, get the test, the exam ran. And physicians make anywhere between $350 to $500 every time there's an exam done. And so we figured out how to actually use all of my marketing background in building and response, and actually use that knowledge that we had here as a company going on 2 decades to develop these our rapid response medical centers to acquire patients any number they want. Whether that be through our rewards programs, where we're setting up with local businesses, direct marketing, some of the social programs that we've built. Our goal is to get every one of our clients to at least 100 new patients a month, but we could actually do more than that if they can handle that capacity. Our requirements is that they're willing to go to at least that. So our patient acquisition models and our diagnostic models are tied at the hip. Nobody has ever done that before. We're the first to ever be able to accomplish that.
I love it. I truly love what you're saying to people, about being a disruptor. And what I really love the most that you said, because this can be applied to any business, right? Find a
Oh, absolutely.
problem, be the solution, right? Find the problem, be the solution. You
Yeah, and
found a
the
problem.
harder the problem is to solve, the better. And you want to have that attitude. You do want to have that attitude, because the harder the problem you solve, the less competition there is. We solve the problem, in my opinion, at such a deep level, at least for now, we have no competition. So
And that's so powerful, right? Because I know all of the things that you were dealing with in the background while
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
solving this
You've been in and
problem.
out for me for some time. Just so everybody here knows
Yeah.
that me and Paz have known each other for years, and we always keep
Yes.
track of each other and keep each other updated. So yeah, that's why I was real
Yes.
excited to get on your show. It's fun.
So to know that you were dealing with life, right? Because as an entrepreneur, life doesn't stop happening, right? You said you got 6 kids, so kids don't stop
Yeah.
being kids. Wives don't stop being wives. Bills don't stop coming. And you continued to build on something until it came into not just fruition, but till it became one of the major disruptors in this industry. And I think is going to be, something that's going to revolutionize medicine in the next 10 to 20 years on how people get access to diagnosis, I should say, how they get access to labs, how doctors can move, all of those things. You didn't allow your life, and that's why we say you don't have to be perfect, right? You didn't allow your life to stop you. And you got started in a whole nother industry that probably no one around you was interested in. Because I know when you first told me about it, I had no interest. I just love you. Right? So I would listen for hours and just shake my head. We would be sitting in Vegas at the office, and you'd be telling me, and I'm like, and you didn't give up. You didn't allow life to knock you down, but you've also, as someone who owns a family of businesses, I want other business owners to understand that not every business that you kept. How do you decide when a business no longer fits your model of where you're
Man,
going in the
that's
business?
one of the hardest questions you could ever ask. You've been around with, like, when I was working on Artist XP. So being an engineer, I've always had an opportunity to develop branding and back office technology for a number of things. And there's projects that I had to let go at certain times that honestly I still regret. you know that I wonder a lot of times if I should have held on to them. And you do have to make very, very hard decisions at times about where you're going to spend your focus and where you're going to spend your time. And you have to realize that when you make those decisions too, you're married. And if you're going to let a business go because of another business, then you're divorced. You kind of have to look at it that way. There's, many a day I'll be sitting back sipping on a little bit of coffee or something, and just thinking about other businesses that I had, that I just kind of wonder, you know what I mean? What if I would have, done these 5 other things and have had moved forward at this point? Maybe I could have continued it. But you have to specialize what you're doing eventually. It's very important that you do. It's important too to maintain some sense of streams of income. We have a direct sales company as well that we're going to be launching on Thursday. And so I've been deeply involved in that industry for a long time too. That's where our mutual friend Jack Zufelt actually met me, was in one of the direct sales companies that I owned and operated. And that company did really well in the UK for a while. And so, you always want to continue to keep streams of income coming in that have diversity. But you also want to be very smart about how you're doing that. You don't want to just simply say, I'm going to have many streams of income and just start going after whatever you can to do that. You got to think about what you can specialize your time doing. How much time do you actually have to dedicate to one thing or another? You eventually get to a point where you're going to need help depending on whatever you're doing. I got 32 employees. I could never do what I'm doing by myself. It would be impossible. And so you got to think in that level of diversity. But we're launching a direct sales company. It's called Club Med Pro. We got a pharmacy program in there, and then we also have our myeval.ai, which is an evaluation system that's actually tied to all of the other medical stuff that we're doing. That's like going to be a competitor to WebMD that we're going to be launching as a destination website. And that's a different audience. Direct marketers are different audience than direct sales, as far as that goes. And I mean, not direct sales, but complex sales. The stuff that we're selling to doctors, and we train people in our back office at betoparedes.com. You click on organization, you can click on join as an associate, and there's a video there. I kind of explain everything back there. But we do train you on complex sales. I like that stuff especially because there's nice big upfront commissions for that. And if you're looking to be an entrepreneur, one of the best ways that you can do that is to become a salesperson. I've always been a salesperson, and whether or not you're working, let's say with us, working as a salesperson, or if that's just your mindset, you just really need to have a good product and a good company that you're working with and some tenacity, and you can actually go ahead and launch a career, make six figures in your first year in most careers that are in complex sales. And so we've got a great program for that. But then there's also the direct sales model that we have that's basically B2C instead of B2B. And I've done very well in that space as well. At one point, I was partners, if you'll remember, with Steve Smith, who was still to this date the highest paid individual in direct sales that's ever distributor, anyways, that's ever been. He made about 300 million as a direct sales guy. And so I was a partner with him, building companies for a little while. And so you want to keep things diverse, but you also want to specialize at the same time, right? You want to have influence, but you also want to make sure that you can actually manage the things that you're doing consistently daily. So
I love it. I love it because as you're talking about other companies that you're launching, as someone who owns multiple companies myself, understanding, you know, what your niche is, right? And where you want to go. So right now, your niche is, even though you're doing direct sales, where you're doing B2B, B2C, your niche is still medical.
yeah,
Like
100%. Yeah, you
you
bet.
are you are transforming, the medical industry, as an engineer first, and then as an entrepreneur second. A lot of times, and you said something that was so key to having multiple income streams, but not chasing the shiny bouncy ball, right? Because there are multiple income streams doesn't mean every time somebody offers you an income stream, you need to take that one, right? Because that may not fit where you're going. It may not fit, your family of companies, like Beto has. It may not fit your major definite purpose. So to know what your niche is, who you are, and I think you've done very well in defining your niche along the way. But I don't want to miss the opportunity to go a little deeper into what you launched yesterday. But
Sure.
one, for the doctors and the medical officers that may be able to benefit from it, and two, from the potential distributors, right? Who may want to earn an income stream, because you're offering an opportunity for people to come work with your company, and they don't have to buy some of outrageous package, or they don't have to do some outrageous thing. They just have to be willing to put in the time, the effort, the work, and the training. So please tell them about what was launched yesterday, why it's so special, and why we rearranged all of our people to knock my guy back who was supposed to be on today. We pushed him back to next week so that we can have this exciting technology in front of
Sure.
everyone today.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, yesterday was a big day. We were working on this for a number of months, really since February when we announced our patents. We did a big event in February just to let a lot of the folks that we've been working with know that we're coming. And then this yesterday we launched our sales platform. So the main software platform that we have is called Decision Doc. And Decision Doc is a decision engine. It works with artificial intelligence. It works with intake data coming in from patients. It calibrates data that comes in from diagnostic equipment, such as ANS devices or blood laboratories. And it helps doctors in the decision process of exactly what they're planning to do with a particular patient. And we figured out how to take that piece of technology and include a marketplace in order to elicit new patients coming in. And we handle all of this. We actually manage what we call fractional CMO initiatives. And so we have individuals working in house that actually work on that practice consistently, building a network with other businesses that are around them, offering the health risk analysis, which is, again, what I was telling you about earlier, where about 8 out of 10 patients over the age of 35 qualify for this exam. Having them come in for the first time for a diagnostic test that gives doctors a tremendous amount of data. And included in that, of course, is all of the data sequencing that comes from our Decision Doc platform. And so basically, when we partner with a practice, they become a rapid response medical center. That's basically what happens with them. They put stickers up in the window, some posters up in their waiting room about being a rapid response medical center. It's kind of like the idea when you first started seeing urgent cares pop up 20 years ago. You didn't really see urgent cares before that. And all of a sudden, you see urgent care on the side of all these different practices. And so, rapid response medical centers are basically practices that are doing urgent care, but they have diagnostics like you wouldn't believe. I mean, there's no reason to go to an ER unless you're bleeding to death at this point. You just go to a rapid response medical center, and it blends in all of the best priorities of a physician's practice. So you've got family practices, general practice doctors, and they have a lot of them specialty programs. We've got programs built directly into the diagnostic model that we have for both diabetes and neuropathy, which are the two most common ailments that are managed by general family practice doctors when they have long-term chronic illness that they're dealing with. And so they get the blended model that's basically the best of urgent care and the best of a family practice with diagnostics that not even the hospital at times have access to. And so basically, we're partnering with them, bringing in patients, as well as providing all of the actual technology that they need to operate so much more efficiently as a provider. And it's just never been done at this level. Never has it been done, period, to have a diagnostic set of tools offered by a company that also comes along with patient acquisition, marketplace model, that uses social media and uses actual local business relationships in order to bring in additional patients. Those have always, to a degree, been separate from each other. And so practices will have a marketing company they work with that might be bringing in 30 patients a month. They might have bought technology for some of the diagnostic tools that they're using. But we have the best of both worlds. We're a completely all-inclusive model. And we call the entire model the Rapid Response Medical Center ecosystem, which if you go to rapidresponsediagnostics.com and click on Rapid Response Medical Centers, you can actually check that ecosystem out. We've had a lot of practice with working. I'm sorry, we have a lot of test marketing that we've already done with this. We've done different portions of this with a lot of the partner practices that we've worked with. We've got clients that are using our systems at certain points, but we just launched what I like to call the battle station, and that was yesterday. And so, if you're looking to potentially represent a very cutting edge, bleeding edge, in my opinion, market in medical, you'd want to work with us. There's no saturation in the marketplace. In other words, we don't even have competition to create a saturation. We're brand new bleeding edge technology, and we're technology that practices need, and they get a 10-mile radius when they work with us. And so when we get a practice, there's a 10-mile radius that they have. Nobody within that radius is going to be able to work with us. And so there's a little bit of sense of urgency too, because once a practice realizes what we're doing, they're not going to want their neighbors to have it. They're going to want to be the ones that actually have this technology and have this patient acquisition model in place. They're simply not going to want to be next door to the guy that does. So yeah, you go to betoparedes.com, click on our organization, and there's a link there that says join as an associate director. There's a video on that page that's actually the replay from yesterday. If you want to learn a lot more about what we're doing, we've got full training. So you sign, check out the contract. Our commissions are really good. That video actually covers the commissions. You can make 6 figures. You can even make 7 figures with us. I've been working with and training sales organizations for a very long time. And so you get to work directly with me. Our systems work very well. You're able to just set discovery calls right in our back office, and we have SaaS residual income. So we not only pay very good commissions up front, but you're tied into the actual money that we make with these providers on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis after that. Paz, your audio's down, brother.
There you go. Can you hear me now?
There you go.
All
Yes, sir.
right.
Yep.
Sometimes technology, that's why we don't got to be perfect. We just got to get started, right? Technology doesn't always agree with us. But you told the distributors how they can get started, which is always important, because we are helping not just, establish businesses, we're also inspiring the new entrepreneurs. So we thank you for telling them how to get started. But we also want to tell the medical professions how they can acquire, right, this amazing technology. If you don't have a sales rep in your backyard yet, or if you haven't met one of the teammates that Beto is putting out, there's still ways for you to get started today. So how would they do that, Beto?
Yeah, 100%. So if you want to learn a lot more about our models, there's two different websites that I suggest you spend some time on. RapidResponseDiagnostics.com is going to be where you're going to get a lot of the educational information you need about the programs that we have. And then if you want to know about our background, who are we, what kind of engineering are we done, how long have we been around, what's our reputation, you would go to BetoParedes.com, and that's BetoParedes.com. And there's links from Rapid Response Diagnostics over to Beto Paredes too, if that's easier for you. But that's where you would learn about it. There's ways to contact us on both of those sites. Very easy to get hold of us.
That is so important, because I tell you, this hour goes quickly. We're already, we got 10 minutes left. Like it went like that. I told you it would, and it was important that we told your backstory, because there's somebody right now that was making an excuse. Well, I don't speak good English. Your father didn't speak any English.
He didn't speak any. That's true.
Right.
He learned it quickly. He certainly learned it quickly, but he just got started.
There's someone right now that's saying, well, I don't got enough money. You lost $100,000 and I know land. That beautiful wife of yours. I know she was not very happy.
That was a hard day for her. You bet. You bet.
I know that was a hard day. I know my nephew Gabe wasn't too happy. Daddy lost $100,000, but you could have easily said, I'm defeated, put your head down, but you said, no, I'm going to perk up. I'm going to get up early. I'm going to brush it off. And at 5 a.m., I'm going to dedicate myself, get through it. So that in itself is amazing. That in itself, while being a father, a husband, and then you're responsible. How many employees did you have back then? I probably 32 as you do now. I know you probably.
At that time, I had a whole in-house crew that was working on the show. So there's 11 in-house crew, and then I still had my entire development team at that time as well, because we were working on a couple other things besides. And so I think in total I probably about 45 employees at that time. And I did lose my American staff. The staff that I had working out of my office here I was in Blackfoot, Idaho at the time. I had to let them go. That was really rough. I had some very good people. That was painful. And that is hard. It's difficult to get to a point where you can even afford to have people help you. It's even worse when you get to a point that you can't keep them, and so, we've built up since then, and it's way past that point, honestly, since then. But it was a really, really rough time. You know what I mean? A lot of emotions. And that's the other thing, if we were to end on any point, I'll tell you, your logic is always going to argue for your better good. It's going to tell you should do things in a certain fashion that is better for your future. But the problem is we don't use our logic as often as we should, especially when things get really rough. We start to think emotionally. We start to take the way we're feeling about a situation instead of about the way we're thinking through the situation. And we start having thoughts that are driven by the feelings that we're having. And the feelings of desperation are going to create desperate thoughts. There's just absolutely no way around it. Feelings of difficulty, of inadequacy, whatever you want to call it, there's going to create those kind of thoughts. The way you get through that is you remember that the logic that you're able to apply to the things that you're working on has its own value. It doesn't have to be an emotional thing. Okay, you don't have to let your emotions drive the way you're experiencing things and what you're thinking. And when you remember that, then you can keep those emotions at bay when you work through some of the harder situations and just work logically through things. And it even helps bring peace to the situation, because a lot of times when you're feeling desperate or things are very difficult, what you need more than anything else is peaceful thinking. And if you trust your logic more than the way you're feeling at that in one particular moment, you'll make it through.
I love it. Thank you, because someone needed to hear that. Someone needed to know that they can do it too, that they can make it, that their challenge is not impossible, right? Their challenge should be telling that I am possible. And you are prime example of I am. So I want to thank you for spending time with us. I want to thank you for
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
but I want to make sure that anyone who wants to work with you, even though we said it once, I want to make sure we go over it again, even though I even put it in the description, still, I want people to be able to say, I want to work with Beto. This is how I do it. So how can they find you, bro? What options do they have? I know there's the medical option. And you said you're launching the direct sales. Will that be open for?
Yeah, if you're a direct sales guy, network marketing guy at all, you really want to check out what we're doing. We're giving a first look to a lot of the network that we've already built up on Thursday, and that's been a kind of a private invitation. We're probably going to publish that to our website once it's over, so we don't really have a link for anyone to be able to sign up for that specifically. We certainly do on the medical side as far as medical sales is concerned. You can find that at betoparedes.com under organization, under join as an associate. But the direct sales stuff, this is kind of our first look. We're super excited about it. It's one of the last things that we finished in our provisional patent that actually happened after February, was a lot of the stuff that we're doing in the destination website. So we'll probably post that video to our website once we're finished on Thursday. So you'll be able to find it on betoparedes.com after Thursday.
Awesome. So basically, if you want to get started today earning a large income, you may not earn it today, but get started today, right? Because you don't have to be perfect. You just got to get started. You can go to betoparedes.com. You can click on organizations. You can click on join us, right? And then you can start through the process. This is one of the few real opportunities that you can have that can earn you the kind of income that he's offering without you having to invest any out of pocket money. You got to invest some time to learn. You got to invest some time to be trained. But he's not asking for your out of pocket expense. So this is such a blessing.
I have a guide.
As we rearrange the world.
I've got a guide in there too. If you come and sign up, and yeah. So check it out. If you sign up, you go through training. Training's 4 hours. Okay, you'll learn all about our medical stuff. You'll get to see our demos. You get to see our software, which is amazing stuff. And once you get through that, then you'll have a bunch of marketing material. We got call scripts, we got media you can send, but there's a guide back there. If any of you are working a job and you're trying to go full-time entrepreneur and work for yourself, and you want to do that with us, I've got this about a 4 or 5 page guide that I put together to really help you understand what you should have saved in your bank account, how many hours you should work, exactly what your expectations should be if you're planning to actually go full-time commission sales. And that's how you get into the 6 and 7 figures. That's how you get into the $400,000, $500,000 a year. And you absolutely can do it. I did it myself for myself. Okay. We've got everything built for you, and we're doing it from the position of having all of the technology available for the clients. All you've got to do is get out there and get discovery calls set. And I did it, and I made something like 2.5 million my first year out when I first got started, and I was actually building from scratch. Okay, so you can absolutely do it here with us, but there's a guide back there that really kind of runs you through if you're new to the game, or you're wanting to be kind of a self-driven, self-purposed, and you want to work for yourself. We've got a guide back there, and if you follow it. Okay, if you follow it, you'll get there. And I cover everything about how you should be working out, how you should be eating. For example, if you're going to do this, stop going to the gym. I know this is probably the worst thing anyone's ever said out loud, but work out at home. Okay, don't leave your house. Okay, that's just one of the things. That's just one of the pieces of advice that I give in there on how to actually crush it if you want to go from working somewhere to not working anywhere anymore, working for yourself and making really good money. I've done it many times myself. I've helped other people do it in other projects that I've done. And so I love it when I see a real hungry entrepreneur that actually wants to get out on their own. And I got a guide for you on that. So that's worth going through trading just to get your hands on, in my opinion. So,
Yes, it is.
but yeah,
Yes,
Paz,
it
thank you
is.
for having me on your show, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, man, and thank you for being here. Before we end, I'm going to ask you to do what everyone else has done and say our personal manifesto together so that we can continue to bring it alive. So my personal manifesto, I'll say one really quickly first, and then I'll ask you to repeat after me. So my personal manifesto, it goes like this. I love me. I'm worthy. Some people may not like me, but I don't care, because the people that matter will be glad that I'm here. So you ready? I love me.
I'm going to try. I love me.
I'm worthy.
I'm worthy.
Some people may not like me.
Some people may not like me.
But I don't care.
But I don't care.
Because the people that matter.
Because the people that matter.
Will be glad that I'm here.
Will be glad that I am here.
And we are glad that you were here. We are glad that you spent an hour. We are glad that you told everyone about the Beto Paredes family of companies. We're glad that you told people about your medical technology. We're grateful that you offered opportunities for people to come work with you. And you don't have to be perfect. You just have to get started. If you like what we're doing, please like, share, and subscribe. And remember, we are live every Tuesday on YouTube and LinkedIn from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So, Beto, I will let you give the last words of the show. It's on you.
All right. Well, thanks, Paz. I really appreciate the fact that you invited me to do this. I had a good time. And for any of you that are interested in working with me, I look forward to it. I'm an easy guy to get a hold of if you have any questions or concerns. And other than that, I love the theme of this show. It's worth it to get out there and make things happen, guys. And all you got to do is lean into it. Just remember that. If things get tough, just lean into it. That's what I've done for the last 30 years.
And you've heard it from the best. The CEO of Beto Paredes family of companies, and you have heard it from the happiness engineer, aka the LDP of Big Happy Consultants. Smile big, because there's nothing that can stop you but you. Peace.